Hi everyone, this is Joel from Niabi Zoo, and today is our final episode on the journey inside an animal's mouth to where their teeth tell us the types of food that they like to eat. So in our previous episodes, you may have seen us talk about this animal here, herbivores that like to eat plants, and we talked about animals like this, like snow leopards and lions that like to eat meat, and we looked at those teeth, and if you recall, the herbivores have these flat teeth like this to eat those plants, and the carnivores have sharp teeth like this to eat that meat, and they hunt animals. But today we are actually going to look at animals like these. So when we consider this one, at first when we look at this and we see its big sharp teeth, we would think that this would be a carnivore, right? But if we look closer and we recognize the difference between something like those lion teeth that we saw before, we have to look at the back of their teeth, right? The front are nice and sharp and it looks like they can certainly, catch some prey or something with that. But when we look at those back teeth, they don't have all the sharp edges that we saw before. Yet they're also not quite as flat as the herbivores that we saw either. So this one that I'm actually holding up is actually the skull of a bear, right? And we know that bears, they do like to eat plants, some berries and leaves and things like that, but they also hunt fish and hunt other prey animals as well. So when we look at their back teeth like this, they may have some sort of little sharp edges on them, but we see they also have a grinding surface as well. And so when we look at these down here, these actually might look a little bit familiar, right? Because when we think about our own teeth, our molars kind of look similar to this, right? Not quite as long as these, but the surfaces are very similar. So they might use the front teeth to help catch prey, like those fish in a river, but they're going to use their back teeth to grind that up, but also to grind up the plants that they like to eat. So that is a bear, which we call an omnivore. So omnivores eat both plants and animals, right? Now, of course, the next omnivore that we look at here, many people would be pretty familiar with this guy. Now, of course, they again look at the front and they'd see these sharp teeth and think that this is a carnivore. But when we open up the mouth, we see that those are not sharp-edged teeth or the super flat teeth, but these are also the teeth of an omnivore. Now, this particular omnivore, people have funny nicknames for it. They call it the trash panda or something like that, but that is actually the raccoon. Now, raccoons are amazing animals, and while people say, yes, they get into the trash all the time, it just shows how adaptable they are to living around human environments. So yes, they can eat plants and they can eat berries and they can eat other animals and insects, and they can hunt, but they can also scavenge and find lots of things to eat as well. And of course, we humans, we're kind of a wasteful species. We throw a lot of food away, which often ends up in our trash cans, which is why raccoons go in there. So it's not that raccoons are trying to raid all of your stuff. It's just that they think, hey, this guy must really like me, that he puts his food in this nice barrel for me, and I can just climb in there and eat every night. So you must like me a lot if you're going to feed me every night. And so that's what we have to think about when it comes to raccoons, is they have this really big nose and a great sense of smell, and they're very, very smart. They have a nice large brain case here, very intelligent animals and problem solvers, and they can actually problem solve their way into almost any trash can. That's why it's always a good idea to put things like bungee cords on it. But when we look at other omnivores, like this one, this actually might look kind of familiar to us. In fact, some people say, oh, is that a little person? Well, not exactly. This is from a monkey, though. This is from a rhesus monkey. And when we look at the monkey's teeth, it has kind of some front incisors, just like we do, right? But it also has a canine tooth, and it has these molars in the back. And when we look at these molars, just like we said, maybe the raccoon or the bear have molars similar to us, these are practically identical to our molars. So when we look at those teeth right there, they look just like our teeth. In fact, the whole bridge of the mouth looks like us. And so that's because we, as humans, are actually primates, and this is a primate. And so when we consider what do primates like to eat? We have to kind of think about us. Do we like to eat meat? Yes, we do. But do we also eat plants? Yes, we do. We eat salads, and we eat fruits, and we eat vegetables, and we eat all kinds of plants. In fact, plants are incredibly important to our diet. And so when we think about us as being omnivores, and raccoons being omnivores, and bears being omnivores, that is a pretty great way to find lots of food because you're not restricted to one way or another. So omnivores are pretty adaptable to living in many different environments and taking advantage of the different food sources that are available. So we talked about herbivores, we talked about carnivores, and we talked about omnivores. So if we were to go out into the woods or something like that, and we might find maybe a fragment of a jaw or a big strange tooth like this one, right? We should be able to, if we may not know the exact species of the animal, but we should be able to know the type of animal that it is or what type of food that it ate. So if we looked at this one and knew that this was a molar that fell out of the mouth of an animal, we should be able to look at that and look at that flat profile to it and kind of the weird cusps. But to the flat profile, we would have to say that this would have to be from an herbivore. In fact, this is from an herbivore called a hippo. So this is a nice big hippo tooth, which is kind of cool. And then, of course, we look at this one. This one actually should look pretty familiar when we look at those kind of pointy edges, but overall, we see that's kind of a flat tooth line. So this is actually from a deer, like we saw previously. And so those edges help them to cut up all of the leaves that they like to eat. Now, when we look at, say, this one has those big pointy shaped teeth in the back, and this is actually from a lion, so we know this, having its pointy teeth, has to be a carnivore. And we look at, say, this one right here. We notice those are very flat edges. That's actually from a porcupine. Or no, sorry, actually, this one is from a beaver. And so the beaver, while it's missing its front teeth, we can see that the back edge teeth is like the porcupine because both porcupines and beavers are rodents that like to eat plants. So this one right here, we see the sharp edges there, so we know that's a carnivore. We look at, say, this one right here, we see a big sharp tooth in the front, but we look at these teeth in the back, and we notice that they aren't that sharp and they're not that flat, so they're kind of in between. So this has to come from an omnivore. In fact, it does. This actually comes from a grizzly bear. Yeah. And so then we look at, say, a tooth like this one, right? And we notice that it's got some edges, but it's just a single tooth. But those edges are not that sharp and they're not pointy. So this has to come from an herbivore. In fact, this comes from a camel. And then we look at this one. Well, that's just very sharp, but it's a cone-shaped tooth. This one actually comes from an alligator, and we know that sharp tooth is going to eat meat. So that is a carnivore. And then we have some weird teeth like these. Right? These look maybe like our front teeth. In fact, they are like our front teeth because these are the front teeth of a human. Now, of course, we can't see its back teeth, but if we figured its front teeth look like this, it probably eats some plants for sure. But this is from an omnivore. And then we look at this one here. This one might be a little bit confusing because we see that sharp tooth in the front, and then we only have a couple of these teeth here in the back. But when we look at them real close, we can see that they're not that sharp, not that flat, so we would have to figure this has to be from an omnivore. In fact, that's from a baboon, so it is an omnivore. So just by knowing the difference between the different types of teeth and whether it's sharp, whether it's flat, or whether it's in between, that can tell us a lot about the animal, and it can make your journeys out into the woods. If you happen to find a jawbone, again, you can probably figure out what that type of animal eats just by looking at its teeth. So thank you for taking a journey into the mouth of animals to hopefully understand a little bit more about them. And we hope that you continue to tune in to learn more about what we're offering here at the zoo. And we can't wait to have everybody come back. Everyone have a great day. Take care of yourselves. Be safe. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye now.